They called them the Alvani. 8-limbed, silver-skinned, with a voice like static and acid. Before the war, most humans hadn't even heard of them. Hell, I hadn't either, and I'd done 5 deployments across the Outer Rim. But when they showed up, they didn't introduce themselves. No message, no warning. Just fire and death. They hit Cleo 9 first. A terraforming colony, only 10 years old. My brother was stationed there. He was a survey lead. Soft hands, brilliant mind, couldn't throw a punch to save his life. When the Alvani came, they didn't just kill, they made a show of it, broadcasted the executions across public channels, strung up human bodies like trophies on half-built outposts. My brother, they sent a feed of him being torn apart limb by limb. I watched it once. Just once. That was enough. The UHF, United Human Forces, responded too slow. Politics, hesitation, votes. But the vets, the old dogs like me, we didn't wait. We signed on to the Black Line, unofficial, off-the-books kill squads, no diplomacy, no mercy, just retaliation. We landed on Loraxis Prime, one of their border worlds, 6 months after Cleo 9 burned. They thought they were safe, too far out for us to care. But we cared. We cared a lot. My boots hit dirt the same way they taught us back in Boot. Hard, fast, and without second-guessing. Loraxis was bright, the air electric with some kind of alien pollen, the sky lit with 2 suns. Pretty. Would have made a good human world if it weren't for the bastards who built their temples out of our bones. We came in with 2 full companies. No mechs, no tanks, no orbital support. This wasn't about conquering. It was about sending a message. Our rifles were old Gen 6 plasma hybrids, hot enough to melt through Alvani armor if you hit them twice in the same spot. Their soldiers were taller, leaner, moved like insects, but they bled red, just like us. That was all we needed to know. First night we hit one of their outposts. No prisoners. Their screams echoed for miles. They used to chant in that static language, real creepy stuff. But after the first wave, they shut up. Silence. We left their bodies in piles, torched their flags, burned their symbols into the ground with our own blood. The men? We weren't heroes. We were pissed off, broken, and tired of playing the galactic nice guys. Every one of us had lost someone. Some lost entire families. This wasn't about politics. This was personal. The worst part? They didn't even see us as a threat. Not really. Their leader, some glowing priest thing with bone plates for armor, laughed when we stormed their war chamber. Laughed until O'Hara, my second, shoved a grenade into its mouth and pulled the pin. No last words, just meat and dust. After that, they started running. But here's the thing about humans. We don't like running, not from us. We chased them across 12 worlds, burned their archives, cut off their supply routes, slaughtered entire breeding facilities. They used to breed by implanting larvae into host bodies. Guess who they tested that on? Human civilians. Children. We found the footage. That's when the real extermination began. Command tried to call us back after the 3rd week. Humanity has made its point, they said. No. We weren't done. They pissed off the wrong species. We didn't see ourselves as saviors anymore. That illusion died with the kids in Cleo 9. Somewhere along the line, we stopped fighting a war and started carrying out an execution. They'd spread out after Loraxis, scattered like insects across the outer moons and black rock systems. The Alvani weren't cowards. They just hadn't dealt with hate like ours before. See, other species, they fight for territory, for politics, for survival. Humans? We fight for the dead. And when we do, we don't stop until everything that stood against them is erased. We were 34 strong now. Started as 120. The others? Gone. Either killed, turned to glass by plasma fire, or spaced out over blackened terrain that used to be forests. No reinforcements, no medical. You dropped? You stayed dropped. That was the Black Line Oath. I remember when we hit Zendrak 4. Cold place. Wind sharp as razors. It wasn't even on most maps. It was a refueling outpost and prison site for Alvani political rebels. When we landed, we didn't expect much resistance. We were wrong. They'd set up hives under the ice, organic tech, spined structures that pulsed like hearts and bled when you shot them. The resistance wasn't organized. It was desperate, cornered. That made them more dangerous. We lost Davis and Corin before we even made it to the surface tunnels. Davis got hit by a spitter round, some kind of corrosive slime that melted half his torso before he could scream. Corin got pulled into a side shaft. We only found her arm later. She'd carved a smiley face into her sleeve, said it reminded her of Earth. I took it. Still keep it in my pack. Don't know why. Inside the tunnels, we found something worse than enemies. We found breeding chambers, thousands of human corpses, some of them still twitching. Their eyes. They were alive until the moment we pulled the plugs. They used our people to feed their young. Larvae burrowed deep in the chests, feeding off flesh, replacing the host's organs while keeping them breathing just enough to last longer. O'Hara threw up. First time I saw him lose it, he was a hard bastard, tougher than any of us. But this broke something in him. We torched the chambers, not with guns, with fire, old school flamers. It wasn't about killing anymore. It was about purging evil. And after that, we started hunting with a different look in our eyes. Before, it was revenge. Now it was cleansing. We didn't just want them dead. We wanted their memory gone. They begged, some of them. Not in our language, but you know when something's begging. That sound? It's universal. Doesn't matter what you speak, we didn't listen. One of them, we called him Bones, was the last of his group on Zendrak. Skinny thing. Limbs all wrong. He dropped his weapon and dropped to his knees when we found him. Didn't fight. Didn't move. Just sat there, like he knew what was coming, like he welcomed it. Mercy, he croaked through our translator unit. I looked at him. We ran out of mercy 3 planets ago. O'Hara shot him through the skull. Some of the men started carving notches on their armor, 1 for every kill. Some were running out of room. I didn't. I kept my armor clean. But I never forgot a face, especially not the ones that smiled when they tortured our people. They tried diplomacy again on the 11th world, some kind of desperate peace envoy. Pathetic. They landed a small vessel near our forward post on Harnex Prime, waving white plasma lights like idiots. We let them land, let them speak. They offered shared territory, coexistence, amnesty for war crimes. War crimes? They wanted us to feel guilty for hitting back, for not rolling over like the others. I remember the look on their face when I told them our terms. You surrender every world, every system. You put your leaders in chains and let us decide how they die. Then you give us your tech, your weapons, your ships. You become nothing. Then maybe we let some of your children live, as a reminder. They refused, of course. Proud bastards to the end. So we vaporized the entire envoy. After that, no more envoys. They knew, and when they finally ran out of places to hide, they pulled back to their homeworld. Alva Core. The heart of their empire, their sacred planet, untouched for thousands of years. Not even their allies dared step foot there without ritual. We weren't allies. We didn't do rituals. We came down hard, guns blazing, ships dark, silent as the void. They tried to resist. Massive orbital defense arrays, ion cannons that could punch holes through moons. We lost 5 dropships, 40 men. My left arm got torn up from debris, patched together with synthetic mesh. Didn't matter. We made it to the surface. And what we saw? It was beautiful. Not the way Earth was, not with trees or rivers or sunsets. No. Alvacor was beautiful in its arrogance. Grand towers of bone and metal, oceans of black glass, statues of their gods, their kings, their victories. All of it screaming, "We are untouchable." We burned every inch of it. We made them watch. We found their young, their version of schools, hatching nests. We didn't even hesitate. Some of the men paused, looked at me for orders. I gave a single nod. Burn it. No more Alvani. This wasn't vengeance anymore. It was policy. One by one, their cities fell. They tried everything. Chemical weapons, psionic attacks, even turning their own civilians into bombs. We didn't flinch. You can't scare men who've already lost everything. The last holdout was a temple fortress buried under the capital. Ancient place, sacred to them. That's where we found their queen, or whatever passed for leadership in their hive mind. She tried to talk, tried to offer some shared history excuse. Said humans and Alvani came from similar root species, some mythological garbage about twin evolutions and shared destinies. I let her talk. Then I let Royce shoot her in the throat. No grand speeches, no final words, just another enemy with too many teeth and not enough brains. The last broadcast from Alvacor was us, standing in front of the temple ruins, blood-soaked and grinning like lunatics. I remember looking directly into the camera and saying, "You wanted to see what happens when humans get angry? Look around. Now imagine what we'll do to the next species that tries this." Then we cut the feed. The rest was cleanup. Quiet. A few pockets of resistance that didn't last more than hours. They were broken, not just as a military force, but as a people, as a legacy. They were extinct by the time the UHF tried to reassert control. They sent ships, spokesmen, peacekeepers. They found a silent world of ash, corpses, and smoke, still rising from the bones of a civilization. And us? We were already gone. Black Line doesn't wait for thanks. We just disappear. They say extinction leaves echoes. They're right. It had been 4 months since we turned Alvacor into dust. 4 months since we erased the last trace of the Alvani from existence. No more colonies, no outposts, no ships, no survivors, just charred ruins and fields of bone. We'd done what we came to do. Wiped out the species that made the mistake of hurting our own. But the silence that followed? That was the part none of us were prepared for. We didn't go home, not really. Most of us didn't even have homes anymore. Earth felt like some abstract concept, a soft place with flowers and rain, where people still worried about taxes and birthdays. After what we'd seen, what we'd done, the thought of going back there, it felt wrong. Like bringing poison into a nursery. Some of the men tried. They shaved, cleaned up, put on fake smiles, and flew back to civilian life. I kept in touch with a few. One shot himself 3 weeks later. Another got arrested for beating a neighbor half to death after someone set off fireworks outside his apartment. You see, the war didn't end for us. It followed us everywhere. I stuck around the frontier, kept drifting from system to system. No orders, no command, just me and whatever ship I could patch together. I'd earned enough loot during the purges to live comfortably, but comfort was for people who slept easy. I didn't. Every night, the same dreams, the same screams, that last look on the Queen's face before Royce put a hole through her throat, those hatchlings twitching in the fire, the pile of bodies in Zendrak. I didn't regret it. That's the part that scared me. Not one bit of guilt, just emptiness. Somewhere deep in the galactic core, politicians were still arguing about it. The Human Tribunal opened inquiries, war crime tribunals, ethics panels, all of them talking in circles about moral lines and collateral consequences. They didn't see what we saw. They didn't smell the rotting corpses in Alvani hives. They didn't watch their families get disemboweled live on screen. And they sure as hell didn't march through fire and blood for 12 straight worlds. They wanted answers. We gave them silence. The black line never spoke. That was part of the code. We didn't defend. We didn't confess. We just vanished into history like smoke off a battlefield. But the galaxy? Oh, the galaxy heard us. The ripple hit harder than we expected. Every alien race that once dismissed humans as soft, diplomatic, or primitive suddenly fell quiet. Borders that used to be hot zones became neutral zones. Trade routes opened up with no resistance. Fleets backed off. Piracy dropped by 60% in human space. They didn't fear our tech. They didn't fear our politics. They feared us. Because the moment you kill a species to extinction without flinching, people remember. It didn't matter that they started it, that they took Cleo 9, tortured our civilians, used our children as breeding husks. None of that mattered to the rest of the galaxy. All they saw was that humanity went too far, and that's exactly what we wanted them to see. I heard whispers. In some outer colonies, they'd started calling us the Ghost Men. In others, the Flame of Earth. I didn't care what name they used, just so long as they never forgot that we were capable of it again. One day, I got a message. Encrypted. Old code. Only a few of us still had access to black line frequencies. I thought they were gone, scattered or buried. But this message? It just read, "They found another one. Not Alvani. Worse. You in?" There was no signature. Didn't need one. I sat with it for an hour, stared at the blinking cursor like it was a loaded weapon. I could ignore it, live out my days in the shadows, maybe even try to be something close to normal. But I knew better. Peace was a story someone else told. War? That was the only language I understood. I typed 2 words. Send coordinates. The meat was in dead space. Some place called Corinth Belt, a system so toxic and empty, it didn't even show up on most maps. I took an old freighter and modified it to mask my ID, just in case. Not that I expected UHF patrols here. Too far out, too forgotten. When I arrived, the others were already there. 6 ships, 6 ghosts. I recognized them immediately. O'Hara, Royce, Tenor, even Bishop. Hadn't seen that bastard in 2 years. Thought he'd been spaced over Mardzi. Guess not. They looked older, colder. Royce was missing half his face, replaced with synth metal. Bishop walked with a limp and a plasma brace on his spine. None of us smiled. O'Hara stepped forward. "You saw it?" "Yeah," I said. He nodded. "They're called the Krynari." I raised an eyebrow. Never heard of them. "They're worse than the Alvani?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he tossed a chip onto the table. "Watch it." I did. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. It showed a human science vessel, civilians, researchers, unarmed, being boarded. Alien creatures with translucent skin and long segmented limbs. No words, just slaughter. Slow, precise. They didn't kill to win. They killed to experiment. Vivisections, body fusion, nerve link harvesting. It was Cleo 9 all over again. Only this time, there was no message, no announcement, no declaration of war, just silence. Like we didn't even matter, Royce spat. "Same story. New monsters." Tenor growled, "I say we hit them now before they even know what we are." But Bishop shook his head. "It's not like last time. The Krynari aren't centralized. They're scattered, hidden, operate in shadows. They don't have a home world." I looked at O'Hara. "So how do we fight an enemy with no throne to burn?" He met my gaze. "We light up the shadows. The galaxy doesn't need heroes. It needs monsters on a leash. And once again, humanity was getting angry. That never ends well for anyone else. The Krynari didn't build cities. They built labs. And that's how we found them. By tracking the screams. It started with intercepted distress signals. Not the usual automated beacons, but strange ones. Corrupted, distorted by some kind of frequency interference that made them hard to trace. At first, the UHF ignored them. Too many dead zones, too many anomalies that couldn't be verified. But we didn't ignore them. We'd heard this kind of silence before. The first lab we found was on Vekar 17, a backwater moon orbiting a gas giant. No official colonization records, no settlements, just mining waste, radiation storms, and empty space. Perfect place to hide something you don't want the galaxy to see. We went in low. Cloaked, dark engines, no comms. Same 6 ships, same 6 ghosts. O'Hara and I took point, dropped through a side canyon under the storm line. The sky above cracked with lightning every 10 seconds, casting jagged shadows over the rocks. Vekar wasn't welcoming. Good. Neither were we. The lab didn't look like a lab, not at first. It looked like an old ore refinery, half collapsed and rusting. But beneath it, deep underground, was something else, something alive. We blew through the upper bulkheads, dropped 20 meters into a shaft that reeked of rot and chemicals. The walls were made of metal fused with organic tissue. Pulsing veins, breathing floors. O'Hara muttered something under his breath, but I didn't ask. I knew what he was thinking. This wasn't science, this was desecration. Inside we found what was left of the crew. What wasn't fused into the walls anyway. The Krenari didn't just kill, they repurposed. Human bodies split open, reassembled into grotesque organic machinery. Eyes wired into monitoring systems. Nerve endings turned into switches. Brainstems kept alive in nutrient tanks, screaming silently without lungs. Royce vomited. Even he couldn't keep his composure. I remember standing there, staring at one of the tanks. It had a face. A young girl, maybe 15. Her eyes were still moving, scanning side to side, blinking in slow, mechanical rhythm. A message was burned into the glass. Unsentient, no harm, reusable. I shot the tank 5 times. Then I shot every other tank in the row. We found the Krenari scientist in the lower chamber. If you could call it that. It didn't have a mouth, just a long vertical slit where a face should have been, eyes on the sides of its skull, skin like glass, with faint green fluid pulsing through its veins. It wasn't armed, it just stood there, watching. When we moved in, it didn't resist. I held my rifle up, staring into whatever it used for a face. Why? I asked. The translator struggled to convert its thoughts, but after a few seconds it came through. Human structure, flexible, adaptable, valuable for higher constructs. Not a threat, not an apology, just cold biological assessment, like we were cattle. Royce pulled the trigger before I could. The thing collapsed into a puddle of steaming glass fluid. We burned the lab, every inch of it, buried the shaft under controlled charges, collapsed the canyon mouth. Vekar 17 was marked contaminated, flagged with warning beacons and UHF red tape. But the damage was already done. This wasn't an isolated lab. It was one of many. The next month was chaos. We split into pairs, tracked every anomaly the galaxy tossed our way. Dead zones, lost colonies, missing vessels. Every one of them led to the same thing: hidden labs, fused bodies, Krenari machines humming in silence. We tore them all down. But it was never enough. For every lab we destroyed, 2 more appeared in systems we'd never even heard of. It was like trying to kill cancer with a matchstick. And then came the ship, the first real contact. It was drifting in the Lorna Pass, an unmonitored shipping lane used mostly by smugglers and illegal haulers. A cargo vessel reported strange lights near the coordinates, then went silent. Uff picked it up a week later, adrift, gutted from the inside. No crew, no data logs. But something was inside it. We boarded cautiously, Royce, Bishop, and I. The ship was cold, dark, stripped of all human tech. Every screen was shattered, every wall etched with carvings in some alien script we couldn't decipher. But the center chamber, that's where it got worse. A single human body sat in a chair. Upright, arms strapped down with fused metal, spine opened like a book. Tubes ran from the skull into the ceiling. His face was frozen in a scream, but no vocal cords remained. Bishop ran scans. He wasn't dead, not completely. The brain showed low-level activity, sustained by alien fluids, functioning like a CPU. "This is a message," I said. And I was right. As we turned to leave, the lights flared red. A single word flashed across every wall. Humanity. Then another. Adaptable. And a final one. Next. That was the moment we realized. The Krenari weren't hiding. They were studying, learning, evolving, and we'd just told them how far humans were willing to go when pushed. When we regrouped, O'Hara was quiet. Too quiet. I pulled him aside. "You okay?" He looked at me like a man who'd finally seen his own reflection in a monster's eyes. "We gave the galaxy a lesson with the Alvani," he said. "Now the Krenari want to improve on it." He was right. We weren't just fighting monsters anymore. We were fighting monsters we helped create. The plan changed. This wasn't about revenge now. This was about containment. Royce suggested biological warfare. Said we could reverse engineer a neurovirus from the Krenari's own tech, something that targets their fluid systems and dissolves their organic memory cores. Bishop argued for orbital sterilization. Strip any infected system with solar cannons, glass entire moons if we had to. Tenor wanted something worse, wanted to capture one, dissect it, find out what made them tick, and use it against every species that might think about stepping out of line. I didn't speak, because I knew the truth. We'd already started becoming them. That night, I watched the old feeds again. Clio 9, Zendrak, Alva Core, all the screams, all the fire. And I asked myself, how many more fires until there's nothing left worth saving? I didn't have an answer. But I knew this. The Krenari made a mistake. They studied the wrong species. They thought understanding humanity would save them. What they didn't understand was what we become when we realize extinction isn't a tragedy, it's a tactic. We were never meant to come back. Black Line was supposed to be temporary, an angry weapon humanity only used once, unsheathed for one righteous act of vengeance, then buried. Like a loaded gun kept in a drawer, just in case. But the moment we sent that message, when we left the Alvani Queen bleeding on her sacred floor, something changed in the galaxy. And something even worse changed in us. We'd tasted what it meant to be feared. Not respected, not admired, feared. And there's something primal in that. Addictive. After Alva Core, no one dared breathe wrong in our direction. But fear doesn't protect the weak. It only draws smarter predators. The Krenari weren't conquerors. They weren't interested in glory or territory. They didn't come to rule. They came to learn, and then to harvest, and finally, to replace. They saw what we did to the Alvani, and instead of backing off, they studied us, broke us down like machines, learned our patterns, our biology, our weakness. Then they started mimicking us. We'd wiped one species off the map. The next one decided to become us. It started slow. The footage we intercepted wasn't from battles anymore. It was from contact events. Entire colonies not destroyed, but mirrored. Cloned right down to the architecture. Only difference? No survivors. Just synthetic hosts walking the streets in endless loops, repeating the last recorded behaviors of the original inhabitants. One clip showed a bar on New Shanghai 2, a bartender polishing a glass. Over and over. No customers. No change in expression, just the same motion. Forever. Until the flesh on his arm started to rot from motion damage. Another feed showed children playing in a park. But when a drone zoomed in, it revealed they weren't children. Just hollow crinary exoshells packed with organic slurry, shaped like smiling toddlers. A performance. A message. They weren't attacking anymore. They were recreating us. Badly. The galaxy started whispering. Maybe the Alvani weren't the only monsters. Maybe humanity broke the balance. Maybe we woke something worse. We didn't care. We were too busy prepping for what came next. O'Hara pulled us in-system near Benthus Verge, a Crinari pocket zone hiding one of their massive replication ships. We called them vaults, biomechanical crucibles where species were taken apart and stored like data. Memories, reactions, instincts, all copied, compressed, archived. We found the vault half buried in the crust of a dead moon. Bishop ran scans, said it pulsed with more bioelectricity than anything we'd ever seen. "It's alive," he muttered, "and it remembers." We loaded up. Plasma charges, heat seekers, neurovirals. Royce brought a new toy, a kinetic lance that shattered reinforced bulkhead walls in one shot. He'd modified it with a cryocore that flash froze any organic tissue behind impact. The plan wasn't subtle. Breach, erase, burn. We came in hard, using repurposed Alvani tunnels we'd dug years ago. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. We were killing the future with the graves of the past. Inside, the vault was worse than we expected. Not just bodies, cultures, whole environments replicated with terrifying accuracy. Cities, markets, family homes, all dead, all perfectly preserved, except for the people who were reduced to semi-living data points fused into the walls. Children blinking, husbands reaching out, wives smiling through stitched-shut mouths. Royce snapped first, shot a host that looked exactly like his daughter. She had freckles, auburn curls. A voice, copied from some old Earth cartoon. The real girl died in the Alvani purge. This one just stared blankly. He emptied a full clip into its skull. Didn't stop until it was paste. We moved fast, set charges, planted signal scramblers. The vault was laced with automated drones, but they didn't attack. They just watched, recording every move we made. Tenor said, "They're building a manual." I said, "Let's make the last chapter a warning." We reached the core, a pulsing, massive brain-like structure suspended over a black pit. Voices echoed through the chamber, every voice we'd ever known, parents, lovers, children, dead comrades, all speaking our names, all begging us to stop. But they weren't real. They were echoes, ripped from memories they'd pulled off our helmets, our old transmissions. Psychological warfare designed to tear us apart from the inside out. It didn't work. We'd buried too much to be manipulated now. O'Hara stood at the base of the core. "This is where it ends." And then he did something we didn't expect. He stepped forward, pulled off his helmet, and injected himself with the virus we'd developed, strain 7B, the one we'd designed to trigger a full neurological cascade across any Crinari-linked tissue it touched. "Too much tech in me," he muttered. "They'd use my memories next." He grinned. "Let's give them a bad one." Then he walked into the core, hands raised. The last thing we heard before the vault went up? His laugh. We barely made it out. The explosion cracked the moon's crust, sent tectonic shockwaves that rippled across the entire sector. Debris took out half our ships. Bishop lost his leg. Royce got torn open by shrapnel. He's walking metal now, patched together with painkillers and hate. But the vault? Gone. And with it, millions of stored human echoes. We denied them. That was the victory. But something happened after Benthis. Something we didn't expect. The Krynari stopped fighting. Every lab we hit after that? Empty. Every ship we chased? Abandoned. Every vault? Offline. No resistance. No presence. Just silence. Like they'd disappeared. Like they learned. At first, we thought it was over. But Bishop had a different theory. They didn't die, he said. They evolved. He was right. They didn't fear us anymore. They began imitating us differently. The next colony we visited, Orbis Terra, a remote outpost in the Ares Drift, had gone completely dark. No distress call, no wreckage, just stillness. When we landed, everything looked normal. Streets intact, homes clean, gardens blooming, too clean, too quiet. We moved through like ghosts, weapons up, every sense wired tight. And then we saw them. People, human people, living, smiling, laughing, but not one of them blinked, not once. We tried talking, asking questions, getting responses. They replied like scripts. Perfect pronunciation. Dead eyes. Royce said, "They're trying to fake being us," I said. "They're not faking anymore. They're rehearsing." We torched the colony, no hesitation, even the kids. Royce didn't cry this time. None of us did. We're back where we started. A species crossed the line. And now we're going to burn another name off the galactic record. We're not doing it for revenge this time, not even for the victims. We're doing it for the future. To remind the stars that humans might forgive a mistake, but they'll never forget disrespect. The black line lives again. And this time, there won't be anything left to study. We thought we were hunting them. We weren't. They were guiding us. Every lab we destroyed, every vault we torched, every Krynari structure we cracked open like a rotten egg, they let us. Not because they were scared, but because they wanted to see how we'd do it. Every tactic, every movement, every weapon, they weren't testing our strength. They were learning how to break us. And now, they were ready. The ambush hit us in the Fractus Run, a corridor of asteroid belts and abandoned trade posts drifting in the dark between sectors. A perfect place for an ambush. We should have known better. We were chasing a ping, a soft signal from what looked like an old Earth colony ship. It shouldn't have even been there. But the ID codes were clean. Human. Real. So we went in. We found the ship torn open at the midsection, power flickering, atmosphere leaking slow. No signs of life. But the weird part? No signs of struggle either. No blood, no bodies, no sign of a fight, just quiet. Until the doors locked behind us. Royce was first to react, always was. He slammed his fist on the manual override. Nothing. Bishop tried slicing the panel. Sparks, but no response. That's when the walls changed. They didn't move, they just shifted. Like the ship was a skin stretched over something else, something underneath. Metal turned to muscle. Screens turned to blinking nerves. Lights faded, replaced with low red pulses like a heartbeat. The air got thick, and then the lights came on. But not their lights, ours. Footage played across the walls, our missions, our purges, the slaughter on Zendrak, the burning of Alvacor. O'Hara walking into the vault, laughing before his own death. Every moment we'd tried to forget. The Krynari had it all. "You admire us," a voice said. Not from a speaker, from inside our helmets. It spoke in perfect human English. "You burned gods. You taught the stars fear." The lights pulsed brighter. "We want to be like you." Then the floor opened, and they came out. Krynari in human exosuits, not poor imitations, not stitched together flesh puppets like before, perfect copies of us. Royce stared in disbelief. "That one? Looks like me." It wasn't just the face. It was the walk, the expressions, the rage behind the eyes. They weren't copying anymore. They were replacing. We fought, hard. But this wasn't like before. The Krynari had improved, faster, stronger. Every time one of us made a move, they countered, like they knew our thoughts before we did. Because they did. They'd been watching, absorbing, learning how we hunted, how we reacted, how we killed. Now they were better at it than we were. We lost Tenor in the first 60 seconds. His throat ripped out by a mirror version of himself that didn't even flinch when it died, just kept moving until Royce blew its head off. We got out. Barely. Explosive breach through the cargo hold. No time for bodies. No time for second thoughts. We fled to a dead drop station 2 sectors out. No signal. No light. Just silence. That's when Bishop said what we were all thinking. They've perfected us. Over the next 2 weeks, reports poured in. Whole garrisons wiped out, by squads that looked and fought exactly like elite human recon. Black sites that had been secure for decades? Gone. Civilian colonies reporting returning soldiers who weren't soldiers. They'd infiltrated. Not just our bases. Not just our data. Our image. Galactic councils panicked. No one knew who was real anymore. Some accused us. Said the Black Line went rogue. Started rogue purges on innocent systems. A few diplomats even claimed the Alvani had been framed. That humanity was the threat. The Krynari didn't need to destroy us. They just needed to turn the galaxy against us. And it worked. UHF Command tried to recall us. Said we'd done enough damage. Said we were too unstable, too violent, too unpredictable. We didn't answer. Because we weren't soldiers anymore. We were the antibodies. The disease they couldn't cure with words and protocol. So we went darker, colder. We activated Protocol Eclipse. It was a contingency we never thought we'd use, buried in Black Line doctrine. A way to burn an enemy so thoroughly, not even their data would survive. It wasn't a bomb. It was a concept. A mobile AI that injected entropy into a species' genetic and technological architecture, corrupted their data trees, severed their memory links, collapsed their biological imprint chains. We called it Ash. It was never supposed to be used. Until now. Deploying Ash wasn't easy. You had to be near a root system, one of the Krynari's main data pools, usually hidden inside deep space void sectors, places that were mathematically empty. No light, no gravity, no sound. Perfect conditions for a race that didn't want to be found. We found one, Sector Phi 9, a place so black even scanners refused to acknowledge it. We went in. Just the 3 of us now. Me, Bishop, and Royce. What was left of the Black Line. No backup, no return plan, just Ash. The approach was simple. Breach, inject, detonate. Only problem? They knew we were coming. The moment we entered orbit, the voice came back. Not threatening, not angry, grateful. You were our first inspiration, it said. Now you will be our final gift. Then they showed us what they'd built. A vault of humanity. Billions of images, voices, thoughts. Not just ours. Earth, Luna, the colonies, everything. They didn't want to destroy us. They wanted to archive us, to become us. Not because they hated us, but because they worshipped us, and we weren't going to let them. We dropped hard into the vault. No subtlety, no stealth. Every corridor lit with memories. Our music, our films, our speeches, our wars, even our failures. They loved it all. We reached the core, a throne room of data, humming with stolen DNA and synthetic memory chains. Bishop uploaded Ash. Royce held the line. I watched the countdown. The Krynari didn't resist. They just watched. Their final message played across the walls. You taught us to rage. You taught us to conquer. But most of all, you taught us to never forgive. Then the core imploded. a black sun of entropy, wiped them clean. Not just physically, historically, they never existed. No data, no memory, no trace, just silence. We floated in space for 2 days. Royce bled out before rescue arrived. Bishop went comatose. I stayed awake because someone had to remember what happened, even if no one else would. When command found me, I was half dead. They asked the same question over and over. Are they gone? I gave the same answer every time. No, because I don't believe in extinction anymore, just in hiding. They'll come back. Someone always does. And when they do, I hope they're smarter, because the next time humanity gets angry, we won't stop at your species. We'll erase your entire idea. There's no ceremony for monsters, no medals, no applause, no welcome home parade. When the last Crinari vault collapsed into digital ash, the war ended. Not with fireworks, not with a declaration, just a long, empty silence that no one dared speak into. We didn't go back to Earth. Not because we couldn't, because we shouldn't. What would we be, walking down crowded streets again? Ghosts? Warnings? What does a man do after he's erased an entire species, not for survival, but for the audacity of imitation? I sat in a chair on an orbital outpost above Epsilon Ceti. Not a military base, just a crumbling mining rig retrofitted with beds and vodka. No orders came. No one searched for us. The galaxy wanted to forget. But I couldn't. Royce's last words still echoed in my skull. Make sure they stay dead, even if we don't. He didn't just mean the Crinari. He meant us, the Black Line. Bishop was still alive. Barely. The entropy exposure from the ash injection had wrecked his nervous system. Left him twitching in a med pod, eyes glazed, sometimes mumbling names of people who died years ago. Some UHF doctor tried to study him once, said maybe Bishop was evolving, that the ash hadn't just killed the Crinari, but had begun reshaping us. Cognitive echo displacement, they called it. I pulled the plug on that study. Bishop wasn't a specimen. He was a warning, one I wasn't done reading. Meanwhile, the galaxy moved on. The Crinari became myth. Official records marked them as a rogue synthetic AI experiment, a failed prototype from some fringe civilization, sanitized, tidy. Humanity had a habit of rewriting horror into digestible lies. They even erased our unit number from official archives. Black Line 917 never existed. Our operations? Unconfirmed. Our actions? Strategically exaggerated. They called the erasure of the Crinari a containment event. Containment. As if it hadn't been genocide in high definition. But that's what peace needed now. A lie strong enough to keep people sane. The veterans scattered. Those who were left, anyway. A few drank themselves into oblivion on backwater moons. Some sold their war stories to illegal archives. A few, like Bishop, just disappeared into quiet corners of the system, half living, half dreaming. Me? I stayed in orbit, drifted between jobs. I did repair work, mostly. Quiet. Paid in credits, silence, and the occasional bottle of something strong enough to make me forget for a few hours. The dreams didn't stop. But I got better at pretending I didn't remember them. Then, one day, a kid showed up at the station. Couldn't have been older than 20. Clean suit, polished boots, regulation haircut, a UHF cadet, full of questions. He approached my table like I was a historical exhibit. "You're him," he said. "The one from the Alvani Purge, the Vault Destroyer." I didn't look up. "Go home." He ignored me. "I read about Protocol Ash. You triggered it, didn't you? You and Royce?" I looked up slowly. "You think this is a story, son?" He flinched a little, but nodded. "They covered it up," he said. But I found traces in the black archives. The Krenari weren't synthetic. They were post-organic. They evolved because of what we did. They worshipped us. Tried to become us. I downed the rest of my drink. You say that like it's noble. No, I say it like it's terrifying. I finally gave him my full attention. His badge read, Cadet Rin. I've been assigned to the new defense initiative, he said, the Contingency Corps. I almost laughed. That's what they're calling it now? A contingency? He didn't smile. They want to prepare for the next one, the next species, one worse than the Krenari, one we might not be able to erase. I leaned forward. Let me guess. They want to bring back the Black Line. He hesitated. That's the rumor. A new version. Sanitized, disciplined, controlled. Then it's not Black Line, I said. It's a pet. He paused for a long time, then asked the question I knew was coming. Would you help us build it? I stared at him, not because I was surprised, because I realized what was happening. We had become the blueprint, not the warning, not the ghost, the model. They didn't want to stop what we'd done. They wanted to refine it. Make it more efficient, more politically viable. I stood up, walked past him, stopped just long enough to speak without turning around. You think the next threat's out there? It's not. It's already here. 3 days later, I left the station. No goodbyes. Just boarded an old shuttle I found in dry dock, fixed it up, and punched coordinates to a place no one tracked anymore. The edge of the void. A place without names, without comms, without noise. I wasn't running from what I'd done. I was trying to outrun what I knew they'd do next. Because I've seen this before. It starts with fear, then comes the copy, then comes the justification. And finally, the next version. In the weeks that followed, rumors started bleeding through the networks. A patrol team on the edge of Sector 43 found a derelict vessel. No crew, no damage. Just a single symbol scorched into the wall. An old UHF insignia. With one difference. The human skull in the middle was smiling. Another report came from a freighter captain on the black route through the Scylla Drift. He claimed he passed a massive fleet, silent, no transmissions, no beacons, drifting like a shadow made of warships, no flags, no identification. But when they passed by, his AI picked up singing, human voices, soft, familiar, a childhood lullaby from Earth's old Europe. Then his system went dark. He woke up days later, his logs wiped. He doesn't talk about what he saw anymore. Some say the Krenari weren't the last. Some say there's another species, one so advanced it never needed ships or weapons. It just watched, waited, and when it saw what we did to the last two that crossed us, it started preparing. Not for invasion, for assimilation. I don't know what's out there, but I know this. The next war won't be fought with weapons. It'll be fought with memory, with belief, with identity. And we already gave the galaxy the tools to become us. They know our hate. They know our pride. They know our wrath. We taught them. So if they come, they won't look like aliens. They'll look like humans. And the worst part? They'll be better at it than we ever were. Because they won't carry guilt. Just purpose. Just design. The Black Line was never supposed to come back. But maybe it never left. Maybe it just went quiet, to wait for the next thing that made humanity angry. And this time, there won't be a second chance. I don't dream anymore. Not because I'm healed, because the dreams became memory, and memory doesn't fade when it's soaked in blood. Out here, where the stars are quiet and light bends slow, there's time to think. Time to rot, maybe. I'm not sure I know the difference anymore. What's left of my ship is a rusting hulk, hidden behind a cold moon in a dead sector. Power core flickers once a day just to remind me it's still alive. Just like me. Still alive. still haunted. It's been 7 years since the last vault fell. 7 years since O'Hara walked into the Crenari's hive core and gave them a death they never saw coming. 7 years since Royce bled out on the cold floor, whispering, "Don't let them write this wrong." And they did write it wrong. Of course they did. The official story? Unknown synthetic threat neutralized in a joint human multi-species operation. A plaque, a footnote, a lesson in cooperation under crisis. No mention of the Black Line. No mention of the genocide. No mention of what the galaxy really became after we made the stars afraid of us. I get messages sometimes, illicit, encrypted, young soldiers trying to piece the real story together. They ask about the Alvani, about the vaults, about Ash. They ask if we really did all of it. I never reply. Not because I can't. Because if I start, I won't stop. And the truth? It's not a story you tell. It's one you live. And if you're lucky, it kills you before you understand it. But not everyone dies lucky. A few weeks ago, I intercepted a signal. Not from Earth, not from the UHF, from somewhere outside the mapped sectors. It was short, 6 words. 6 words I hadn't heard since the day we wiped the last Crenari lab from existence. There's something else. It's watching. No source. No trace. Just coordinates in a place the stars don't shine. At first, I ignored it. Then I got a second message, just 1 word. Human. I prepped the engine. Didn't care about fuel. Didn't care about oxygen levels. Didn't care about survival. I had one purpose now, bear witness. The jump took 13 hours. Most of it I spent going through old feeds. Not war footage. I deleted all that. I watched a video of my brother, from before Cleo 9. He was laughing, arms around his wife, showing me how to use the new scanner tool he'd bought for my birthday. Kept saying I was hopeless with tech, and that I'd end up welding my fingers together. I didn't smile, not because I didn't remember it fondly, but because I couldn't feel fondness anymore. Just a hollow respect for the people we lost, and the monsters we became for them. The coordinates led to a structure, floating between star debris like it had been waiting. Not a ship, not a station, a monument. At first I thought it was alien, but the closer I got, the clearer it became. It was human, primitive metal, welded steel, old earth fonts engraved on the exterior. This thing had been built in secret, long before the Alvani, long before the Crenari, and at its core was a pod. Inside the pod, a body. No decay, no rot, just a man, eyes closed, face calm, and on his chest was a plaque. If you're reading this, we failed. I opened the files stored beneath his body. Logs, transcripts, confessions. The man inside was a Black Line founder, one of the first, before our version, before the official line ever got activated. He spoke in a slow, broken voice, worn down by time, regret, and something else I couldn't name. He told of a first contact before even the Alvani, not violent, not hostile, but insidious. He said the first species humanity ever truly feared didn't conquer us. It simply inspired us. Every time we created war, he said, we thought it was ours, that our rage was unique, our defiance was sacred, but they showed us it wasn't. They didn't need weapons, just mirrors. That's when it hit me. The Alvani, the Crenari, they weren't accidents, they were reflections of us, each more refined, each more efficient, each pushing us further toward purity through wrath. He ended the log with this. I fear what will become once there's no one left to fight. Because then we'll turn on the only enemy we've never dared face, our own reflection. I left the monument where it floated. Didn't touch it. Didn't send coordinates back to anyone. Because some truths aren't for the archives. Some are meant to rot in silence, just like the Black Line. I returned to my wreck of a ship, burned every message, deleted every file. And I recorded one final entry, not for the UHF, not for Earth, not even for history, for whoever finds this, whoever's next. If you're reading this, you're not safe. The galaxy doesn't fear humans for what we build or how we fight. They fear us because once we're angry, we don't stop. Not when you beg. Not when you die. Not even when you're gone. We burn your name from existence. And then we burn the ashes. We're not the monsters they warned you about. We're worse.